I'm Andrew Edwards and you're watching Gear Live. Apple is looking to add some extra flair to their business in the hopes to get you to use their services in even more areas of your life. And today they held a major media event titled It's Showtime to give us a closer look at their new services. In this video, I tell you about the 5 biggest announcements from Apple's It's Showtime event. What is going on, Tech Squad? Andrew Edwards here, editor-in-chief of GearLife.com. If you're into tech and gadgets, feel free to hit the subscribe button down below, along with the bell notification icon so you don't miss any future videos. As I mentioned today, Apple held their big It's Showtime event, and it was an event where Apple showed us for the first time a bunch of their brand new services. So let's jump into it. As I said, I'm going to tell you about the 5 biggest announcements Apple made today, starting with Apple News Plus. Apple is adding newspapers and magazines to its news app for iOS and macOS and allowing you to access as many of them as you want for the all-you-can-eat monthly price of $9.99. Now, Apple News Plus does require iOS 12.2 or macOS 10.14.4. Both of those were released at the conclusion of the event, so if you want to give the service a try, just update your devices. Now, as I mentioned, the service does cost $9.99 per month, but the first month is completely free, so you can give it a shot without having to pay anything. One way Apple's trying to bring news into the new age is with the design of the stories and publications. One example is the new live cover, which animates the magazine covers to make them look a little more interactive. The service will continually learn what you like and will recommend both stories and publications for you to read. During the event, Apple said that all of this processing is done on your device themselves. Apple is not taking a look at what you read and then parsing through it to send recommendations back to you. In fact, Apple said none of the publishers that you read in Apple News are going to know what you're reading, nor will Apple themselves. It's a completely private, closed system. So today at launch, Apple News Plus subscribers can access over 300 newspapers and magazines, and that includes the Los Angeles Times and portions, not the whole thing, but portions of the Wall Street Journal as well. All content is also downloadable to your device, so you can read it even when you don't have a great internet connection or when you're somewhere like on a flight. Privacy was a central theme during today's event. As I mentioned, advertisers can't track your activity, and you also won't receive ads based on stories or publications that you choose to read. One last tidbit here on Apple News Plus, whether you use it solo or with your family subscription, the price does not change. So for that same $10 a month, you and up to 5 other family members can access Apple News Plus with no additional fee. So that's Apple News Plus, Apple's new news and magazine service. Let's switch it over to the next service they announced, and that is the Apple Card. And oddly enough, this is a product that both exists digitally on your iPhone, but also is forged from a sheet of titanium at the same time. The company is looking to be unique with their credit card offering in many ways, starting from the application process, which takes place right on the iPhone. Once approved, the card is instantly stored in the Apple Wallet app and can be used right away. The Wallet app is also where you'll view your statements, your balance, your rewards, payment due dates, and more. Another cool thing is that the app will actually convert your transactions into human-readable form. One example Apple showed was instead of showing a random address or string of letters and you're supposed to figure out where that was, it'll just simply change it to say 7-Eleven, put a 7-Eleven logo there, and even put an Apple map there as well. Another big change here from the typical credit card is that the Apple Card has no late fees, no over-limit fees, and some of the lowest interest rates in the industry. Going back to security, Apple's doing that different too. When you get your physical Apple Card, you're gonna notice there's no card number on there, there's no security code on there, there's no expiration date on there, there's not even a line for you to place your signature on your card. And that's because the Apple Card will generate a new card number automatically anytime you use it. Now, if you do happen to be shopping online somewhere where you do need that information, you can generate it on the fly to make that specific purchase. This way, no one can get a hold of your credit card number and do any sort of damage to your account. Now, I did mention rewards, so let's talk about those for a second. The Apple Card is backed by Goldman Sachs and MasterCard. And as far as rewards go, Apple has something that they're calling Daily Cash. So when you earn your reward, you can use it right away, and it's basically just a simple cashback system. There's 3 tiers. Tier number 1, you get 3% back on any purchases that you make from Apple themselves using your Apple Card. That can be purchases at the Apple Store, that can be purchases on the App Store, iTunes, in-app purchases for apps and games. Anything you buy that comes from Apple, you will get 3% cash back if you use the Apple Card. The next tier down is 2% cash back, and you get 2% cash back on any Apple Pay transactions that you use with the Apple Card. And that happens no matter where you shop. So if you shop somewhere and you use Apple Pay to check out, 2% cash back automatically. And the final tier is 1% cash back, not that impressive, and that's anytime you use the physical card that Apple sends you. So if you're shopping somewhere that does not take Apple Pay and you have to swipe your physical card, you'll earn 1% cash back. Now, as I mentioned, your daily rewards are immediate. That daily cash can be used right away. It's deposited onto your Apple Pay cash card. You can apply that daily cash towards your credit card balance. You can take the cash and buy something with it. You can send it to a friend. That cash is yours each and every day as you spend with your Apple Card. Now, my personal opinion, as someone who applies for several cards each year, I am very, very familiar with credit cards and credit card rewards. And I must say that Apple has done a lot of interesting things here with the Apple Card as it pertains to applying for the card and managing the card and security of the card especially. But the reward system is not one that really stands out to me. The 3% cashback on Apple transactions, 2% everywhere else, Apple Pay, and then 1% on the physical card. It doesn't really sing out to me as being a great card when it comes to bonuses and perks. If you're an Apple fan, you buy a lot of Apple gear, 3% cash back is not bad on everything you buy. But if that's not you, then you're really looking at 2% cash back only in Apple Pay locations and 1% cash back everywhere else. There are a lot better credit cards out there that will give you better perks for your money than Apple's giving you with the Apple Card. But I want to hear from you guys though. What do you think of the Apple Card? Am I being too cynical about it? Do you like it? Are you gonna get one? Sound off down in the comments below. Up next, the next service that Apple announced today is Apple Arcade. This is basically the App Store's answer to the Xbox Game Pass. Apple Arcade is a game subscription service that provides users with access to over 100 games that are exclusive to the service. That's right, not only are the games exclusive to iOS and macOS, but the games are exclusive to Apple Arcade subscribers specifically. And rather than another game streaming service like we saw Google announce with Stadia, which does look pretty impressive to me as well, Apple Arcade users play their games by downloading them and installing them to their devices, which means you do not need an active internet connection to play games on Apple Arcade. Apple showed various games which include familiar franchises like Sonic the Hedgehog, and mentioned that we'll see original titles from people like Will Wright, Sega, Cartoon Network, Konami, Lego, and more. And more than just selecting random games to be a part of the service, Apple's actually also funding a portion of the development of these games as well. These games will only be found, as I said, on Apple Arcade. Apple says Apple Arcade will launch this fall in over 150 countries with pricing to be announced later. I assume that means we'll get more info at Apple's September iPhone event. All Apple Arcade games will be playable on your iPhone, your iPad, your iPod Touch, your Apple TV, and your Mac. Moving on to the fourth big announcement Apple made today, let's talk about Apple TV channels. An update to the TV app is coming and will include a new feature called Apple TV channels. If you've seen channels on Amazon Prime Video, this is similar. You're able to pick and choose which channels you want to pay for a la carte, or the ones that you get access to with your cable subscription that you already pay for. Examples of channels that we saw are HBO, Showtime, Epix, Starz, CBS All Access, and more. The updated Apple TV app will be your one-stop shop for pretty much any streaming content that isn't Netflix. You go into the app and you can see the shows and movies that you're watching, along with recommendations that Apple makes based on what it seems like you might want to watch. So rather than having to jump between all sorts of different apps, you just go into Apple's TV app and everything is there, unless you want to watch Stranger Things. The app will be available on Apple TV, iPhone, iPod Touch, and the Mac as expected, but Apple also announced or reiterated that we will also see the Apple TV app on Samsung, LG, Vizio, and Sony smart TVs. Now, we heard about that at CES, but in addition to that, they also announced that we'll see the Apple TV app on Roku devices and Amazon Fire TV devices as well. So what that means is you do not need to own an Apple device to take advantage of Apple's new TV app. And last on the list of the 5 big announcements Apple made today at the It's Showtime event, the big one, the one that they saved for last, it's Apple TV Plus. Apple TV Plus is Apple's new subscription video service that will house all of the company's first-party original programming. Apple used the bulk of the time here to have a bunch of the actors and actresses, directors, and producers of the upcoming shows and movies to take the stage and talk a little bit about their projects. This included people like Oprah Winfrey, Jason Momoa, Steven Spielberg, Jennifer Aniston, Steve Carell, Reese Witherspoon. Even Big Bird took a moment to take the stage and tell us about the project he's working on for Apple TV+. Aside from knowing who's on board though, we didn't get a lot of information. No trailers for any of the shows or movies, no pricing for what the company will charge to get access to their original content, no solid release dates either. What we do know is that Apple's spending about $2 billion on original content to start filling up its service, and that will be launching this fall, again I assume next to Apple's next iPhone, which we'll see at their annual September event. Now, I'm curious what you think though. How much do you think Apple should be charging for their original content? If you look at something like Netflix, it costs roughly $11 per month. It's got a bunch of not only original content, but also catalog content as well. So content that Netflix licenses to be a part of its service. So right there, we're looking at $11 per month for what many to be the gold standard of video streaming services in Netflix. And if you look at something like Hulu, $8 per month for Hulu. Again, they have a bunch of content, recent TV content, and also a lot of original programming as well. A lot of people say that Hulu is second place to Netflix. That's $8 per month. When Apple launches Apple TV+, they will not have anywhere near the amount of original content that Netflix has, not even anywhere near the amount of original content that Hulu has at $8 per month. So what do you think Apple should charge? In my mind, if they went over $5 a month, it's crazy, and even that $5 seems hard to justify. I feel like Apple TV+, at least at the start, should be $2.99 per month. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Apple says that Apple TV Plus will be completely ad-free and everything will be available on demand. You can stream things online, and you can even download any of the content to your devices to watch them later, even when you don't have an active internet connection. So those were the top 5 big announcements from Apple's It's Showtime event. By the way, this week Apple has released the new version of the AirPods. If you didn't hear about it, I do have a video on that telling you the top 5 features that make the new AirPods better than the originals. I will leave a link to that video up here along with down in the description below in case you want to check that out. If you want to hear even more about Apple's new announcements, I'll be doing an even deeper dive on my weekly podcast. It's called Geared Up. I will leave a link to that down in the description as well. But if you don't want a link, all you need to do is open up your favorite podcast player and search for Geared Up, 2 words, not one, and it'll pop right up. Until next time, thanks so much for watching. As always, guys, I appreciate your support. I'm Andrew Edwards, and I will catch you in the next video.